I've been thinking for a long time about where to start this story, and I've decided I'm going to start with that Friday in April. I may be jumping around a bit from place to place, but let's start with that Friday. It was a Friday afternoon, a little after 5 o'clock, and I was done with work for the week. The weather in Oregon in April can be unpredictable, but today it was gorgeous, almost 70 degrees, sunny, not a cloud in sight. I was in a good mood, the work week was over, and then there was this beautiful weather. What am I going to do this weekend? And then my mood soured. I had no plans, no dates, no things to do. I've been divorced for 3 years, I'm 28, and I'm not dating anyone. I tried online dating, but nothing worked. Just a waste of money. Most of my friends are married, and the couple blind dates they have asked me out on have been unsuccessful. My ex is in a serious relationship with a woman, and they are probably my closest friends. The thought flashed through my mind, what is wrong with me? As I pulled up to the house, I felt better for a moment as I looked at the structure. Through my boss, I had gotten a great deal on the house. It was definitely a fixer-upper, and I had spent a lot of time getting it in order. I made progress. The 1950s-era modern house was a restoration project, and I spent a lot of time and money to get it into the condition it was in now. My connections in the lumber business helped. I got home, grabbed my gym uniform, and went to change. I looked at myself in the mirror. 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, no barbell, but my abdominal muscles were certainly visible. In the words of my ex, I looked pretty good. So what was wrong with me, and why hadn't I had a single serious date in the past few months? I started to get depressed and went for a 5-mile run. I always feel better after a workout, and I was enjoying a beer in the late evening sun on the back patio when the phone rang. It was my ex-brother-in-law, Mike. "Hey Cam, how's it going?" Mike handles the finances, and when I have some money, he takes care of it. He's really nice. His wife, Megan, is a beauty. She's fun to hang out with, and she keeps his huge ego in check. "What do you have for tomorrow?" Knowing I had nothing, but not wanting to admit it, I said I was busy, but I had some flexibility in my schedule. "Don't tell me the old man is making you work on Saturday?" A little backstory. I work at Specialty Timbers. Mike's dad, Ted Robinson, is the owner and my boss. My ex, Kimberly, is the bookkeeper, Mike's sister, and Ted's daughter. Mike didn't go into the logging business, got his MBA, and now has his own investment business, Robinson and Associates. When my mom and sister and I were growing up, we weren't exactly poor, but we flirted with that socioeconomic strata. In high school, I had to pay for everything beyond the basics on my own. After my junior high school soccer season, I went to a counseling center and found a job opening at a company located a short bike ride from my mom's house. I knew that if I ever needed a car, no one would help me pay for it. At 4 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, I walked through the front door of Specialty Timbers for the first time. It was an open office with windows to the warehouse, store in the back, and 3 private offices to my left. I checked my appointment book and asked to see Mr. Hanratty. 10 minutes later, an older short guy with long hair falling in his face approached me. "I'm Skip Hanratty," and held out a big rough hand that was missing part of his index finger. We walked into one of the offices with folders, magazines, catalogs, and blocks of wood lying everywhere. He sat down at his desk, put his feet on the floor, and asked me what I knew about the logging business. I replied, "Not much," which probably wasn't the best answer if I wanted the job. "Then why are you wasting my time?" I was nervous and scared and didn't know how to answer, and he just stared at me. Finally, I said, "Miss Hanratty, I need a job, and I promise you I will work hard." He looked at me for about 30 seconds without saying a word. I was thinking about what other jobs were on the bulletin board at the counseling center when suddenly he said, "Come back tomorrow at 3:30 and be ready to work." I was shocked, stood up, shook his hand, and left. I noticed a tall, balding man poke his head out of the last office and look at me. I couldn't have imagined how my life path would change. So back to that April Friday, as I sat on the patio talking to Mike. "I'm not working this weekend, I just have a lot of things I need to get done in time." "Oh crap, tomorrow is Saturday and there's an event at the fairgrounds and I have to be there. Megan's friends are coming and I need you to be there with me." I actually wouldn't mind going, but I had to pretend I didn't. But before I could start protesting, Mike said, "I'll pick you up at 11. Whereupon I heard my phone buzz. From the sound of it, I was going to the spring fair. I met Mike Robinson the same day I met my ex-wife. By the end of high school, I was working at specialty 5 days a week from 3:30 to 6 o'clock, and sometimes Saturdays if they needed it. I bought a used Corolla with high mileage, but it ran well and gave good gas mileage. The earnings were enough for insurance, gas, and left about $10 a week to help my mom. I was glad to start working full-time from 7 to 3:30 every day when school ended for the summer. The Tuesday after Memorial Day, I arrived early in the morning to start my first full day of work. The shop supervisor was a wiry man named Don Smith. It was Don who had been my supervisor during the time I worked after school. Smitty ran all the machines in the shop, kept track of inventory, and supervised the shipping and receiving of materials to the shop. He basically ran the entire operation. He taught me a lot, and this summer I was going to learn more about how the milling, plywood, and other machines worked. My job was basically to maintain the machines. Everything I knew, I learned from Smitty. That Tuesday, I was told I had a 15-minute break at 10 a.m., 30 minutes, for lunch at noon, and then a day off at 3:30. Smitty sent me at 10 a.m. to a break room I had never been in before. It was on the far side of the office, next to the women's restroom. When I walked into the office, I saw this cute little punk smirking, probably because of the way I was dressed. "Hey, Smitty, you're going to cause an energy crisis." I was wearing the old jumpsuit Smitty had given me, and I still had his oval name tag sewn to my bib. It was smeared with oil from my work with the equipment, but that wasn't the worst of it. Immediately, I heard giggling and saw a girl about my age, pretty, giggling at me with her hands covering herself. Who were these people? I had never seen them before at specialization. At that moment, the owner, a tall man who had taken a liking to me the day of the interview, yelled for them to stop. I quickly headed to the break room away from these two smug guys. As I sat there embarrassed, sipping a cup of copia, the owner, the tall man, walked into the break room. In all the months I'd worked there, I'd never spoken to him once. Don't mind them. They're just my spoiled kids. They're working here this summer, but honestly, I'm not sure what Mike is getting paid for. We've never officially met. I'm Ted Robinson. He held out his hand to me. "Cameron Joseph," I muttered as we shook hands. "Nice to meet you, Cameron. I've heard great things about you from Smitty. Let's talk again this summer. In the meantime, ignore those two assholes." That was my first meeting with Mike and Kimberly Robinson. That Saturday morning, I heard the horn of Mike's black BMW honking, only 20 minutes late. "Where's Meg?" I glanced over at Mike. Dark sunglasses, slicked back black hair, tanned face. Still the same handsome guy I'd met 12 years ago. "She's meeting Brandy and Celia for coffee downtown, and we're meeting them at the fair." Brandy and Celia, I wonder if this is a setup. We parked and walked a few blocks to the fairgrounds. I need to take this to the fairgrounds, to the office. RA is one of the sponsors of the event, and Mike was delivering his company's brochures. The girls are standing at the booths. When we walked up, I saw a gorgeous blonde and smiling Megan, who kissed Mike and introduced me to Brandy and Celia. Brandy had long, dark, straight hair and was very slender but with a slightly stiff look. She was showing a little cleavage, and I had to keep my eyes open as we shook hands. Celia was completely different. Dark, curly hair, athletic build, and a smile. She looked intently into my eyes. "It's nice to meet you, Cameron. I've heard about you." I cast a glance at Megan and saw only a sly smile. My weekend was definitely getting better. In a group of 5, we wandered around the fairgrounds, and I often found myself sitting next to Celia. She had a good way of looking me straight in the eye when we talked. She had a wonderful laugh, and I felt sociable and witty. Every now and then, I would glance over at Mike and notice him smiling at me. It was a wonderful day. We spent several hours looking at all the exhibits, occasionally running into people we knew, and having a good time. Mike knew a lot of people, and it was good for his business. We decided to go to Mallory's and have a beer, and try to get a table outside. Brandy decided to head home, something about a headache, and Mike said we'd take care of giving Celia a ride. We found a great outdoor table, and the sun was shining just fine. Mike told a lot of funny stories about work, marriage, and his family. I tried to remember the last time I had such a good time. Celia was fun to talk to, interesting, and asked me questions about myself. After Mike ordered his third drink, I nonchalantly remarked, "I definitely need to go for a run tomorrow." Celia asked where I ran, and before I knew it, we had agreed to meet on Sunday at 9 a.m. We ended up going, and I had such a good time with Celia, talking, laughing, learning about her life. It was really great. We seemed to fit together, and I hoped there wasn't some variation of a significant other in her life. We dropped her off at her apartment, and I told her I'd pick her up at 9 to go for a run on the rhododendron trail. As soon as we headed home, I felt a look from the front seat. "What?" I asked as they smirked. "Okay, she's fine. What am I going to do?" "I'm going jogging with her tomorrow." "Wow, that was fast," Mike smirked. "Ever since Kim and I divorced, Mike has been trying to find me a new woman. I guess he feels a little responsible for my failed marriage to my sister. He probably knew about her orientation beforehand, but never talked about it. My entire senior year after high school, once soccer was over, I worked at special teams. I even worked Saturdays in the fall. From Smitty, I learned all about the equipment from the inside. On busy weeks, I was asked to work on the equipment on Saturdays, and I ran everything but the veneer press and learned the capabilities of all the machines. Kim would come in on Saturdays and help with the books. She went to a private school on the other side of town, so that was the only time I could see her. She was very sweet, fun to hang out with, and she wasn't arrogant like the other rich kids. Around the middle of middle school, we started dating. What started out as friendship turned into dating. That summer, we both worked at Specialty. I wasn't sure what I would be doing in the fall, but Kim was going to Colorado College. I was worried about the separation, about missing her, about other guys. I didn't know back then that other guys would never be a problem. And just the distance. When I told her all of this, she would reply, "Don't worry, you're the only man for me." She was being honest. She just didn't mention other women in the equation. At the end of that summer, my boss, Kim's father, Ted Robinson, came up to me and asked me about my future plans. I really didn't know what the future held for me. I had an application for Lane Community College on my dresser, but although community college was inexpensive, I didn't have the money for it. It turned out that Mr. Hanratty had cancer. He only came in a few days a week and not for long. "Cameron, you know our store. You're good with customers, and I need young people in this office. I've thought about having you work with Smitty when needed in the store, but mostly I want you in the office learning the business side of specialty timbers." I was shocked. "I'll start at $3,000 a month, and when times are good, there will be a bonus at the end of the year." I immediately agreed and couldn't help but wonder if my relationship with his daughter had helped me get the position. On Monday, I started to work in the office. I came in wearing clothes from the store, and Ted immediately sent me home to change. I began to learn the business. I was impressed with Ted's knowledge and his easy but confident manner with customers. I had a good knowledge of the products and our recycling capabilities. What I didn't know was pricing, customer knowledge, and the accounting side of the business. Ted was helpful and patient with me. After the initial nervousness, I began to feel much more comfortable with him. I kept in touch with Kim while she was in college and felt our relationship remained strong through the fall. Sunday morning, I picked up Celia at 9 o'clock to go for a run. She looked amazing. We chatted casually as we drove to the run site. "I usually do a 5-mile loop, do you mind?" She agreed. We warmed up and hit the road. When running with someone for the first time, you have to adjust to their pace by speeding up or slowing down slightly, but we didn't need to. We were immediately in sync. We chatted as we walked, and I learned that she was a dental hygienist. Originally from the Bay Area, her father was deceased, he worked for the railroad, and her mother worked at a hair salon owned by her mother's sister. Her mother was of Italian descent. Her mother's maiden name was Anna Maria Saltilli, hence her curly dark hair. Chatting the whole way, we did a 5-mile loop and were back at the car by 10:30. I felt so good I could have run another 5 with her. I suggested coffee, and we headed to the nearest coffee shop. On the way home, I heard from Mike and Megan that they didn't have any boyfriends or lovers they knew. I mentally checked. 1. No boyfriend. 2. She's fun to be with, and she seems to like me. 3. She looks great. I began to think that my bad luck may have changed. Unfortunately, I knew I still had a lot of work to do around the house. The tile on the fireplace was half done, and the shower board was in the garage. "Celia, I'm having a wonderful time with you, but I have to go. I'd like to see you next weekend. Are you free?" "Yeah, I guess so. How about we do something on Saturday?" We exchanged phone numbers and headed home. I thought about kissing her or hugging her or something. I felt so close to her, but decided I would do the right thing and not rush things. I was very happy when I got home and got to work. At the beginning of the week, we discussed when the best time to schedule a weekend away was. On Monday after work, I texted her and asked if she wanted to go hiking to Rainbow Falls during the day and have dinner afterward. She replied enthusiastically and added a heart emoji. Our first official date. Tuesday was a busy day at Specialty Timbers. Ted was in Seattle working with a major potential client. Problems came up one after another, and it was up to me to solve them. A late delivery, a disgruntled customer, and one of the milling machines went out while Smitty was working on a plywood machine. I didn't get home until after 7. I was exhausted. While I was defrosting a frozen pizza, my phone buzzed, reporting a text message had arrived. What now, I thought. To my utter delight, it was a text message from Celia. My mood immediately changed, and we ended up chatting for over an hour. It felt so easy and natural. I know it had been less than a week, but I was excited about a woman for the first time in a long, long time. Wednesday night, I texted her, and we had another nice back-and-forth session. Thursday night, she initiated, and we discussed some of the details of our plan for Saturday night. In the evening, I called Mike, caught him as he and Megan were eating dinner, and he said he would call me back. They called back on the way home. Hey, what's up, Romeo? I heard Megan giggle. Just checking on how dinner went. I tried to turn the conversation to Celia, but I didn't want to seem too cocky in Megan's presence. Oh shit, you don't care about our dinner, but we know you're going on a date with Celia this weekend. Your date must have gone well. I told them it went well and that she seemed like a nice girl. Have you gotten her into bed yet? Mike asked. Don't be a jerk, not everyone thinks the way you do, Megan replied with a laugh. We chatted some more, joking and having fun, and it was time to leave. Dude, I haven't heard you this excited about a woman since my sister. I explained that I liked her so far. As we were hanging up, I heard Megan say, just be careful, Cam. I wonder what she meant by that. Friday after work, I had just finished my run and was sitting on my back porch sipping a beer. What a difference the week had made. Last week at this point, I wasn't feeling well, but today I was feeling pretty good. Around 8, I sent Celia a text message, clarifying a few details about our date tomorrow, and just to see what she was up to. I checked my phone at 9:30, but there was no response, which was a little unusual. Oh well, I'll see you tomorrow. I picked her up at 1 p.m., and we headed east, up the hill to the trailhead. Something seemed off. She was still sweet, relatively affectionate, but without her usual energy. When I asked how she was feeling, she said, just a little tired. It's been a long week. Before I could learn more about the long week, she started asking about the hike. No more explanations about the long week. We enjoyed the hike, and when the trail got wide enough, we walked side by side and she held my hand. This closeness was so nice after being away for so long. We planned to drop her off at her house so she could change and tidy up, and return by 7 o'clock to have dinner at Mazzoletta's restaurant downtown. She looked great in her skinny jeans and tight top. She gave me a big hug and kiss when I arrived. I was already thinking about the fact that if I kept going, we would be in her bed very quickly. But I remembered that I was going to play it differently. The restaurant was cozy, great food, and delicious wines. We shared a bottle of wine and had a glass of brandy each while enjoying dessert. I knew I needed to sober up a bit before heading home, so I suggested a walk around the square. It's an area in the center of town, closed to cars, that has cafes, stores, bars, and other restaurants. It was a beautiful evening, and Celia snuggled up to me as we walked. I think we both felt good, a little tipsy, but happy. We chatted easily and casually as we passed couples and groups of people. As we were walking back, I noticed a group of young men ahead, and as we passed them at an angle, one of them suddenly shouted, Cece. I was immediately wary, but Celia moved towards them smiling and accepted hugs from the 3 guys. Hey girl, what's going on? What are you doing here? Meanwhile, I'm standing there not noticing them all hugging. After probably a minute, though it seemed much longer to me, Celia turns to me, flushed, and says, Cameron, these are my friends, Bobby, JT, and Marcus. I automatically extend my hand for a handshake. All 3 of them look at each other, smile, and diligently try to shake my hand with all sorts of body movements. They chatted for about 10 minutes about something they didn't understand. As far as I could make out, it was about music and a club I'd heard about called Evolution. It seemed like Celia and these guys knew each other. I noticed a closeness, especially with the one named Marcus, that was curious to the point of alarm. I felt that all the warmth and friendliness of the evening was gone. From my observations, she seemed to enjoy the attention and company of this group. Finally, after hugging and kissing them as they parted, I said, Nice to meet you. Marcus only nodded. They turned and walked the other way, And about 15 seconds later, I heard their gushing laughter. Celia clung to me again, but her earlier relaxed mood was gone. Did she really have friends like that? There was nothing wrong with them, but they weren't my type. She told me a little about them, and I realized that Evolution was a dance club in the old part of town that used to be an old warehouse. She told me how fun it was there and that we should go there. I giggled and said I wasn't a very good dancer. No one cares, it's just a place to have fun. We drove home and I tried to be chipper, but something about the whole scene was keeping me from being as affectionate as I had been before that evening. When we pulled up to her house, I led her down the hallway and gave her a hug. Would you like to go upstairs for coffee? Normally that would have been the right thing to do, but a combination of wanting to do the right thing and, at the same time, keep myself from getting hurt stopped me. Thanks, but I'm fine. I'll see you later. I gave her a quick hug, kissed her cheek, and left. Throughout Kimberly's first and second year at Colorado College, we remained close. We saw each other at all of her holiday parties. I looked forward to her visits, and so did she, almost as much as I did. When I asked her about school, she almost never answered. Sometimes I got jealous and asked her about all the guys at school. Finally, one day, maybe I got a little cocky, she grabbed me by my shirt and with the most serious expression I had ever seen on her face said, "I told you there are no other guys, leave it alone," and walked out of the restaurant. For the most part, we got along just fine. I envisioned the perfect situation, me and Kimberly, her and me running specialty timbers. It was too good to be true, but it felt like it could happen. I learned a lot from Kimberly's father, Ted. He and I had a good and comfortable relationship. I think he was also happy with our relationship with Kim and me. I think he saw me as sort of the opposite of Mike. Mike was bright, arrogant, and fun. He went to UCLA and I could barely keep up, partying his ass off at college parties. I think he and Ted talked about coming to Jesus and ended up graduating from college. On the other hand, I wasn't flashy. But I made up for my lack of flashiness with hard work and knowledge of woodworking. Ted knew that Mike would never have a career in specialty timbers. QA, on the other hand, was looking forward to a long-term job and a serious relationship with his daughter. And in all of this, Ted was definitely on my side. Here's what happened. I proposed to Kimberly before her junior year, and she said she needed to think about it. In the middle of that year, Kim asked to live together for a while. I was heartbroken. I was head over heels with work. We still socialized and our friendship was strong, but Kim was struggling to find herself. Throughout my junior year, we hardly saw each other. We texted and called each other, and sometimes I would see her when she came home. We worked together all summer, but I gave her the freedom she asked for. Throughout senior year, our communication went downhill. I even went on a few dates, but nothing serious. All of a sudden, she started calling and emailing like she used to. I need space. That summer she came back, we started dating again, and she asked me if I could still propose to her. I was shocked, but happily said yes. We got married that Christmas. I was very happy, Ted was very happy, and looking back, I would call Kimberly medium happy. But in that moment, I was blinded by my dreams of a girlfriend, a career, and a father that I never had. For a while, life was great for me. Kimberly and I worked together at Specialty Timbers, things were going well, I was learning a lot. My relationship with Ted was very good and continued to improve. Surprisingly, my relationship with my new son-in-law, Mike, improved as well. I realized that although he was a narcissistic, arrogant jerk at times, he was fiercely loyal to me, and for some reason he liked me. For the first 2 years, I thought everything was great, but cracks started to appear in the foundation, and the first big crack was our sex life. By the beginning of the third year, we were doing it once or twice a month. In hindsight, I can say that she just didn't like it. Then Millie moved here. She was a friend of Kimberly's from Colorado. Her name is Ming Lee Pham. Her name was Millie. Through Ted's connections, I bought the house I still live in on the cheap for $125,000. It needed a lot of work and the bank wouldn't even give me a loan against it. I bought it on contract from Ted's old partner and made the payment through Specialty, deducting it from my check, which was incomprehensible, but Mike assured me that was the best way to do the deal. I made it livable, and Kim never complained. In the back was a small guest house with running water and electricity. Millie had moved in there. She was an artist, and the cottage became her studio. Kim seemed to spend more time in the cottage than in the house. Millie was always nice to me, and there was no tension between us. After 6 months, Kim came to me with tears in her eyes and told me that she had fallen in love with Millie. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. There was no swearing or fighting. I saw black and I cried. Cried for the first time in almost 20 years. The loss was intense and so sad. I realized that I had tied my relationship with Kim to my relationship with her family and work. My whole life had to change. For 3 days, I sat at home and did nothing. The darkest thoughts settled in my brain. I was on the verge of seriously ending my life, and then Mike showed up. He spoke, and then we talked, and then he listened to me. He made a phone call, and within 30 minutes, Ted was on site. Ted assured me that no matter what happened, I had a home at Specialty. Mike told my dad that I needed a week's vacation, and Ted agreed. Mike took me along for the ride where we talked, drank. I cried a little and reflected. Along the way, I began to realize something. I was in terrible pain, but I had a job I loved. I had a boss and former father-in-law whom I genuinely loved and respected. And finally, I had a good and loyal friend in the person of Mike. Even Kim and I found common ground. The divorce went easily. She didn't want anything, and I kept my house. The most amazing thing was how sweet and supportive Millie was. There were hard times, but I had a good support system of people who seemed to genuinely care about me. I promised myself that before I got close to a woman again, I would protect myself first. On the way home after dropping Celia off, I tried to come to terms with my thoughts. There was nothing special about meeting these guys. I felt a little disrespectful towards them, and a little disrespectful towards Celia, but it was only a second date. She was entitled to have friends, but there was something about this encounter that spoke to me of intimacy with these guys. It didn't fit the image of Celia that I had envisioned. Maybe I should back off a little. The next day was Sunday, and I needed to finish work on the fireplace and eliminate the dry rot. After breakfast, I plugged in my podcasts and immersed myself in the work. Being able to repair and remodel this house the way I wanted was satisfying, and owning my own house and making it as good as I know it will be was especially satisfying. In the middle of the afternoon, I checked my phone. 2 messages. One from Mike to see how things were going, and one from Celia. Brandy and I are enjoying the weather and drinking coffee. Thanks for last night. I needed to think about that. Was I being overly sensitive, or should I have trusted my instincts? I need to think about it some more. Later in the afternoon, I sent a non-committal text back. Have a good time. That was the end of it. Monday evening, I received another message from her. How was your day? I waited a few hours and replied, good, and yours? I got a long message about work and a funny story about a dental patient. I didn't bother to respond. Tuesday night, there was nothing, and I calmed down a bit. Wednesday night, she called. I was polite, but without much enthusiasm. Finally, she asked what was wrong. I didn't say anything. And then she asked if I was upset with her. I replied that I wasn't. I was just busy. She invited me to dinner. Saturday night, I accepted. Perhaps I was too petty to get upset about something like that. I vowed to put it behind me and see what happens next. Dinner on Saturday was nice. She's a good cook, and her apartment was beautifully decorated. I was starting to feel comfortable again and was full of optimism. After dinner, we ended up in her bed. It was amazing. We spent Sunday together, and the intimacy helped strengthen our relationship. We went for a run, and this time we showered at my house. I showed her my reclamation project, and she seemed interested in everything I was doing. I showed her an old mahogany hot tub I took from a project we were sourcing materials for, and showed her where I was going to put it in the backyard. Celia was impressed with my carpentry skills, and she seemed to like my house. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other 2-3 times a week and chatted or texted daily. In one of my weakest moments, I agreed to go to Evolution with her on a Friday night. I can dance a little bit and I don't mind it, but I had a feeling it wasn't my scene. Celia was so excited that I couldn't help but give in to her enthusiasm. Evolution was a trendy new club in the warehouse district of Old Town. I had heard of it, but had never been there. I told myself that in a strong relationship, you have to make sacrifices from time to time, and this seemed to be one of them. We got there a little before 9 o'clock. Celia seemed to know a lot of people, the staff and other customers. The room was dark, strobe lights were on, and there were several DJs on the stands. The dance floor was a mass of bodies moving to the music, and it was hot inside. We found a seat, and Brandy and some guy approached us amidst hugs and laughter. It was hard to talk in the noise. Celia took my hand, and we headed to the dance floor. She was good, and I was out of place. Pretty soon, we were in the thick of the crowd. After a while, I didn't know who was dancing with Celia anymore, me or someone else. I watched her and could tell she was having a great time. After a while, I called out to her that I was going to get a beer, but she only nodded and smiled. I waited to see if she would come with me, but she was absorbed in the dance. I stood by the table and occasionally saw flashes of Celia. So far, I didn't recognize anyone from the group we'd run into downtown a few weeks ago. Celia came back and had a drink, but I realized she wanted to keep dancing, so we walked back. I was really having a good time until I got to know a couple of the guys we met downtown, and in particular Marcus. Marcus was a great dancer and made sure we danced with Celia, and I tried to move over and got elbowed. Maybe it was unintentional, but I doubt it. This went on for a while, and finally I yelled in her ear that I would get her a drink, and if she wanted one, she just nodded and continued dancing. I reached the bar and walked back to our table. I looked at the clock. It was a little after 11. I definitely wanted to get out of there, and I kept waiting for Celia to come back and get me a drink. Finally, she came back, laughing and smiling, with Marcus on her heels. She kissed my sweaty cheek and took her drink. She took a sip, then Marcus grabbed it and drank the rest. Celia only laughed. "Let's dance." She grabbed my hand. "No thanks, I'm done," I said. "One more?" she asked. That's when Marcus intervened. "Come on, girl, I'll dance with you." And they left. I was furious, but what happened next was even worse. While I stood and watched, they settled down on the dance floor. His hands were completely on her, and she looked like she was enjoying it. That's when I got really pissed off. I looked at the clock. It was past midnight. I was done. I was going to give her until 12:30 and then leave. I think it was 12:28 when she came back. I grabbed her, and we headed for the door. I was angry, but I tried to act calm. I wasn't going to yell and scream. All the way home, she talked about what a good time she had, how great the music was, and how much she enjoyed dancing. The fact that I didn't say 2 words didn't seem to bother her. When we got to her apartment, she realized where we were. "I thought we were staying at your place tonight." "I'm fine," I said. "How about another night?" I said this with a forced smile. "Okay," she said and looked at me. I smiled, kissed her, and left. Without a doubt, our dates over the past few weeks had ended the wrong way. The next day, we had no correspondence. I was struggling with my feelings. I really liked her and cared about her, but that scene and her enjoyment of it bothered me. And with this guy, Marcus, they seemed more than just friends. I was busy both Saturday and Sunday, mostly trying to install the mahogany hot tub in its place on the deck. Sunday night, I saw that I had gotten a "how are you" text from her. I didn't reply. Monday night, I got another message from her. "Hi, I miss hanging out with you. Give me a call." I decided I should reply to it, so I wrote, "Sorry, I have a lot to do. Let's meet tomorrow." "Okay," she replied. Tuesday night, I was still reliving the situation and didn't respond. And on Wednesday, I got home from work around 6, and her black Volkswagen was parked in front of my house. Time to get over it. I found her sitting on the back porch. "What's the matter?" "Are you leaving me?" She looked a little angry. "Look, Celia, I don't know what's going on. I'm struggling with some things right now." "What?" she asked. And that's when I started to tell her. I started with my marriage to Kim and how hurt I was, and then I confessed my jealousy of her friendship with Marcus and how I felt disrespected at the nightclub. I laid it all out for her. Why not, since I might never see her again? She sat there looking at me, and then tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to hurt you, but if it means you stay with me, I'll never go to that place again. I want you. I miss you, and I think I might fall in love with you." I was shocked. I thought this was the end for us, but we just turned left and went in a different direction. Love? She promised again that she didn't need to hang out with that crowd or go to dance clubs. I asked her if she was sure, and she said she was sure. "If I had known it bothered you, I never would have asked you there." We celebrated that night in my bed. The next few months went great. We did a lot of things. We went on vacation for a week to Hawaii. It was my first time there, and we loved it. We socialized with my friends and a few of her friends, but never with Marcus in that crowd. I never mentioned his name. We had been dating for about 8 months now, and the holidays were approaching. I had her almost every night, and we started discussing the possibility of living together. We spent the holidays with my family and the Robinsons. She got along great with everyone except Millie. For some reason, there was some distance between them. After the first year, business picked up. We were selling products in Northern California and Puget Sound, and with the construction boom, our products were in high demand. Ted asked if he and I could meet Thursday night. Sure, I replied. What's up? We'll talk Thursday, was all he said. Thursday was busy, and before I knew it, it was 5 o'clock. We met at Ted's office. I was a little nervous about the formality of this meeting. Ted explained that he would be turning 60 this year and was doing some long-range planning. In lieu of a bonus this year, I will give you 9% of Specialty Timbers stock. I was shocked. It's not what I expected, he continued. We opened NorCal and Western Washington, and that was successful, as you know. But now we're getting a lot of demand in Colorado and some resort areas in the Rocky Mountains. I want you to open up those markets. That will require a little traveling, maybe a week a month. Would you agree? Absolutely. I've seen so little of the country that traveling to these areas was exciting. And being co-owner was just wonderful. I was so happy. He told me that he now owned 51%, Mike and Kim each owned 20%, and I owned the remaining 9%. Kim was the CFO, and Mike ran the entire financial part of the business. I asked Ted if Kim and Mike were okay with me becoming a co-owner. It was their idea, he replied. And here's the other thing. Smitty's retiring at the end of the year. Millie's brother John Pham is going to start working at the store with Smitty, and I want you to keep an eye on him too. I will, I said. I couldn't wait to tell Celia that I was now the owner, that I would start traveling. I was on cloud nine. She was happy to be an owner, but much less excited about my traveling. How long will you be gone? I explained that it was usually a few days once a month. That calmed her down a bit. I got right to work, and within 2 weeks I was in Denver. I think my first-hand familiarity with the products and process helped, and we started getting orders right away while I just got to work. When I received my direct deposit for March, I saw that I had another $1,500 gross in my account. I checked with Kim, and she said, "That's your commission. We pay 3% of the total commission. Didn't he tell you that?" I did a little math and figured I could easily sell $500,000 the first year. That's an extra $15,000 a year on top of my regular salary. This year, my income was going to approach 6 figures. We planned another trip to Hawaii for September, and I began to think about proposing to Celia. After the previous problems, everything was going smoothly. I was very happy at work, and with the extra income from commissions, I was able to speed up work on the house. The house was on a large lot, was single level with a guest house in the backyard. The house had 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, an open kitchen, an office, and a family room adjacent to the kitchen, while the cottage had 1 room with a bath and a small kitchen. I spent a lot of time in the garden. The garden had been my oasis before, but now, with the mahogany hot tub, it was like a spa. In May, Celia vacated her apartment and officially moved in with me. It was wonderful to have her here, and for the most part, everything was fine. There was some tension when I was traveling, but I figured we'd get used to it. In August, I invited Mike over for dinner. I needed to discuss some serious things with him. We met at a bar near his office at 6 in the evening. The weather was warm, and we were sitting outside. "What's up, bro?" "I've decided I'm going to propose to Celia, and I'd like you to be the best man." He just stared at me for probably a full minute. "Getting married again? You remember what happened last time?" "This is different. I'm different. Back then, I was just a kid. Neither Kim nor I knew what we were doing. Now I love her, and I don't want to be alone." "You have confidence in her. I remember a few blows not too long ago," he said. We talked about it some more, and I had nervous thoughts based on his words, like he was trying to talk me out of it. I respected Mike's opinion, but he didn't know Celia like I did. "I want you to be my best man." I told him I was going to propose when we were in Kauai. We celebrated with a shot of tequila and ended up having a great night. 2 weeks later, I traveled to Denver again. I needed samples to show to customers, so I went to the store on Friday when Smitty wasn't home. I grabbed my stuff and walked over to the saw. "What do you need, boss?" It was John Pham. "I got it, John, thanks." He quickly walked over, took my samples, cut them into pieces, boxed them up, and handed them back to me. "If you need anything else, I'll take care of it." Quite an impressive young man. "Thanks, John, I appreciate it." "Boss, if you need any more help, my cousin is a good worker." "That's good to hear, John, and you can call me Cam." "Okay, boss." Last trip to Colorado, I made some inquiries about a place called Longfellow's, but this time I made an appointment with the younger Longfellows for Monday at 11 o'clock. I met him at their office outside of Denver. He was a guy about my age with a blonde beard and hair gathered into a ponytail. We found common ground. and our meeting stretched into the afternoon. Not only did I find them to be good customers, but Junior liked them. As we parted, he told me that he would be touring the West Coast in November and would like to see our production. These are usually great networking opportunities. I told him I had business in Montana for 1 week in November, but I would contact him. The trip to Kauai was incredible. We stayed at the best resort and the commission helped cover those expenses. We spent time by the pool and on the beach. We explored the island, hiked, snorkeled, kayaked, active yet relaxed. On our penultimate night, as we sat on the balcony admiring the sunset, I gave her an engagement ring and asked her to marry me. She cried, hugged me, and we were back in bed. As we lay there, I asked her if she was happy, and she said she was. "If you could change one thing in our lives, what would it be?" I asked. "Nothing," she replied. And we were quiet for a minute, and then she said, "I guess for that matter, I wish you wouldn't travel so much." I told her that I needed to tone it down, that it was important for our financial future, and that there might be times when she could travel with me. "Okay," she said quietly. And without thinking, I quickly brushed that remark aside. Perhaps even too quickly. Our lives continued to go on as normal, but now also with wedding preparations. We decided to do it on Valentine's Day. Celia did most of the planning and I supported her. Things got busy at work. The addition of the Rocky Mountain Market increased demand, and we ended up hiring John's cousin Nathan Nguyen and another friend of theirs, Van. Knowing that Smitty was leaving, I made an effort to spend time with John. I saw that he was smart, hardworking, and dedicated. One evening, he invited me to have a beer with him, Nathan and Van. They were all nice guys, they seemed to like me, and they were committed to specialty. We had a lot of things going on in our lives, and all of them were good. I decided to hire a contractor to remodel my kitchen. It was an acquaintance of mine who was buying a house from us. I could have done it myself, but it would have taken months, and I didn't want to mess up this important part of the house for a long time. Celia was involved in the design process, and while we didn't agree on everything, her opinion was helpful. At the end of October, I had to hit the road again. Celia was not happy about this and started pressuring me to make the trip 2-3 days rather than 5. There was no way I could fit less than 5. My November trip coincided with the week Junior was supposed to be in town for a mill tour. I would have missed the event, but Ted said he would be happy to show him our work. I had a trade show with a Montana customer, and this gave me a good opportunity to showcase our products to that market. The trade show started Friday morning, then in the evening and all day Saturday. Sunday morning, I had to take an early flight out of Billings. The expo was crowded on Friday. There was a cocktail party at 8 p.m., and I had several promising conversations. Every night I traveled, I also called Celia in the evening to see how things were going. This Friday, I got to my room a little before 10 and called. There was no answer. Maybe she had already gone to bed or was taking a shower. I called again at 10:30, and again there was no answer, so I figured that she was asleep. The show started Saturday at 10. I slept until 7, got up, worked out in the crappy little hotel gym, and called Celia around 8:15. But there was still no answer. Taking a quick shower, I saw that I had missed her call and called her back. "Hi, we miss each other all the time, how are you?" She answered okay, but somehow not with the enthusiasm I was expecting. "Called you a couple of times, did you go to bed early?" "No, my phone was off, I was just fiddling with work in the kitchen," she replied. "Did they finish laying the tile?" And we continued our conversation about the kitchen renovation, completely oblivious to the fact that she hadn't picked up the phone the night before. Thanksgiving was coming up on Monday, and we were going to celebrate with the Robinsons. All week, Celia had been a little out of sorts, quiet, a little withdrawn. Perhaps the holidays had caused her stress. I didn't say anything about her mood. I received an invitation from Longfellow, our new client in Denver, to attend their Christmas party on December 9th. It was a Thursday evening. We talked about having Celia go with me, but I had other things to do and she had work, so I went alone. They had decorated their warehouse for the holidays. I knew there would be drinks there, so I called from the hotel. It was fun. And later that night, I was telling Junior about our trip to Hawaii. I was showing him pictures and he saw one with Celia. "Let me see it again. Is that your fiancée?" I replied. "Yes, that's her," I said proudly. He handed the phone back to me, then took it again and looked at it intently. He had a serious look on his face. "What's the matter?" I asked. "Does she know someone named Brandy?" he asked. I looked at him and said, "Yeah, why?" I could be wrong, but I thought I saw her and some chick named Brandy at a dance club last month when I was in your town, and I have to tell you as a friend, they didn't act like they were engaged. That was when I was in Montana. I began to get angry and embarrassed. I asked him to tell me what he knew. Friday night after the mill tour, I went with another guy to a dance club called Dust. It was just as you would expect, loud, dark, etc. At one point, Sean, who I was with, started dancing with this Brandy. He said he could take her back to the hotel if he wanted, but later she and your woman were with other guys. I don't remember all their names, but they looked like trouble. Do you remember someone named Marcus? I asked. Yeah, that was one of them. He was friends with your woman, Junior said. Look, you're my friend. I like you, Cam. And as much as it hurts me, I'd like someone to tell me if something like this happens to me. I know, I said. I appreciate that, but I should probably get going. Thanks for the party and the information. I gave Junior a big hug and left. I was worked up, but I had a lot to think about. Nuremberg one. She told me no more dance clubs. That pissed me off. And number two, what was this relationship with Marcus? She lied to me. I just didn't know how badly. I barely slept that night and my flight home was delayed. Celia texted me several times, but I didn't respond. Finally, as I was boarding the plane, she called and I answered. When will you be home? My flight is delayed and I won't be home until 6 p.m. at the earliest. That's too bad. I love you and miss you, she said. I said, I'll see you tonight, and hung up. After landing and on the way home, I decided my plan was to see if she would lie to me. I hugged her and kissed her when I got home. In the kitchen, I checked to see how things were going. I have a question for you, I said. Sure, honey, what is it? When I was stuck in Montana for the trade show last month, what were you doing Friday night? She turned away and replied, Nothing, just hanging out here. You have one last chance to think about the answer. Where were you? I asked her calmly but coldly. I've been... Here she burst into tears and ran off to the bedroom. I sat and waited. I was angry and sad. I just waited. 2 hours later, she came out and told me the whole story. She had talked to Brandy the day before, and Brandy said they should check out a new club called Dust. Brandy knew I was out of town and said they would just stop by there. They ended up staying there late and danced all night. And then what happened? I asked. Then I went home. Alone? Alone, of course, I replied. And Brandy was with you? No, she was sleeping with her ex-boyfriend. And you went home alone? Yes, she said. Who was at the club that I might know? Not really, I don't know. You can imagine how the rest of the conversation went. Getting reliable information out of her was like pulling teeth. Eventually, I found out that they went to a club, met up with some friends, and danced a bit. Marcus and his company showed up later and they hung out with them for a bit. She claims she left around midnight. Did you ever have a relationship with Marcus? I asked. Absolutely not, she replied. Does he want to have fun with you? I asked. No, well, maybe, but he's just a friend, and you're the only one I want to be with. She moaned. I told her I needed to think about it and that she should stay at the cottage. Sobbing, she gathered her things and headed for the cottage. The timing was extremely unfortunate. We were getting ready to get married. The holidays were just around the corner and my whole future was hanging in the air. I needed advice, so I called Mike. He suggested I come over Friday night. Meanwhile, this week with Celia had been very uncomfortable. She was either crying or apologizing. I was frustrated. I loved her, but I didn't trust her at the moment. And can there be love without trust? I met up with Mike and Megan at their swanky new home in the South Hills. I told them the whole story and asked them what they thought about it. Mike was of the opinion that if you can't trust someone, you shouldn't marry them. It's hard to argue with that. Megan put it this way, I feel a little responsible for introducing you two. And I don't know Celia that well, but I think she's a good person, not a bad one. And I also know that she is deeply in love with you. On that, I was in agreement with Megan. At the end of the day, it's up to you to believe in them, or not, she said. That evening, I came home and asked Celia to come over to our house. We made small talk for a few minutes, and I noticed that she was nervous. I had a few questions for her, and I told her that she needed to be brutally honest. She agreed. I asked if she thought the whole club scene was important to her. I asked what exactly happened that night she and Brandy went to Dust. And I asked her about the true nature of her relationship with Marcus. She told me that the clubs didn't matter, that Brandy picked her up at her weakest moment. She was bored and lonely and just wanted to have fun. Yes, Marcus was hitting on her, but as it was, she wasn't interested in him. Yes, the attention from these guys made her feel good, but she never did anything other than get groped a few times on the dance floor. I thought about it, and what she said sounded sincere and in line with my impressions of her. I told her it was a good first step. She asked if she could stay the night in our bed, and I agreed. The holidays passed, the wedding, life went on. My radar was slightly elevated, and I watched her closely, but nothing made me think anything was wrong. Celia was loving and affectionate. During my January trip, she took a week's vacation and came with me, and we spent the weekend in snowy Boulder. We had a great time. The whole incident with Dusty was erased from my memory. We got married in February, and it was a wonderful event. I met her mom and several members of her family. There were less than 100 people in total. Family, the Robinsons, and a few close friends. None of her dance club buddies except Brandy. We honeymooned on the island of St. Martin in the Caribbean. It was different from Hawaii. The ocean was warmer, less waves, and a beautiful blue color. You could feel the strong European influence. Without a doubt, it was my best vacation ever. For the next 2 years, things went very well. Sometimes I thought back to that December and how I almost canceled my wedding and marriage, but was glad I didn't. I put all doubts aside and only thought positive thoughts. We continued to work on the house, and it was becoming a real gem of a neighborhood. I was proud of it. Business continued to go well, and we even thought about opening other markets. But at that point, people and work had us stressed to the max. I developed a good friendship with John Pham. He was a great employee and a good guy. He knew our operations and our equipment. He was the last person to leave the store at night. Every few weeks, John, Van, Nathan, and I would sit in the store after work, where it smelled like cedar and sawdust, and drink 6 bottles each. Our conversations were casual, about business and life. I enjoyed their company, and I think they liked me. Just when things seemed pretty stable, a new competitor from Asia started importing products into the U.S. We first heard about them in Southern California, but knew we would soon see them in our markets. It was an engineered product that looked close to some of our products, but cost at least 30% less. We started to notice that sales were dropping. We had been growing steadily, investing in resources to meet demand, and now, for the first time ever, sales were down. Ted, Kimberly, and I met to discuss our strategy in the face of the new competition. Ted decided it was best to get out to our customers and talk about the differences and quality of our products. That means more travel, and I'm afraid I'm going to need you, Cam, to cover our NorCal market as well as the mountain market. I knew Ted was right, and I knew I had to do it. But I was stressed. That night back home, I talked to Celia about the business and what I would need to do. "How long will it take?" She asked. I replied that I didn't know, but it would definitely take a few months. "Months?" She exploded. "You mean you'll be gone for 2 weeks a month for months?" I replied that I was, and I couldn't promise anything. She got angry. Now, not only was I stressed about work, but I was also not getting support from Celia. We had some good moments, but over the next 6 months, our relationship deteriorated. The closeness that we had between us rarely occurred. I felt like I was fighting both at the market and at home. After 6 months of my business trips and her lack of understanding, our marriage hit rock bottom. I had to travel for business, the trips helped, the business was stable, but it required constant effort. She didn't understand. I flew to the Bay Area on Monday. The weekend had been rough. No intimacy, no good conversations. I started to feel guilty about the trip. Called her on Tuesday and told her we needed to spend the night together when I got back. She seemed a little more energized, and I thought maybe our relationship would start to improve. Friday night, we went to Tomlinson's Bistro in Old Town. Celia was affectionate, the conversation was good, she even asked me about business. We had a great dinner, a bottle of wine, and a couple after-dinner drinks. I called an Uber, and we waited for the car outside the restaurant. I went out to use the restroom, and when I came back, there was Marcus, Bobby, and the whole crowd huddled around Celia. She was smiling and laughing, and Marcus had his arm around her waist. I walked over and grabbed his wrist to pull his hand away. He flinched as if to withdraw my jaw, and I shoved him. The next instant, I was on the ground. One of them struck me with a cold weapon, and I lost consciousness for a second. When I came to my senses, Celia was helping Marcus up. She then apologized to them. I was unconscious, but I realized I could see. Then she came over to me and started screaming, blaming me for what had happened. They left when someone from the restaurant came out to check what was going on. I was still on my knees with a swollen eye. At that moment, an Uber showed up. We both got in it. I was still in a daze and she just clung to me. Why did I mess this up? Why did I knock Marcus down? What was I thinking as I grabbed his hand? This is my body. What were you doing attacking my friends? I muttered. I didn't trust myself. I was so angry at her and the situation. I'm stressed out at work, stressed out about my marriage, and she's showing much more loyalty to Marcus than to her husband. As soon as we entered the house, she went to the kitchen to get me an ice pack. She had no idea how pissed off I was. Get your ass away from me, I growled. This sent her into shock. She just stood there staring at me. Get your ass out of here. You can stay at the cottage. What's your problem today? She replied. Tonight. I continued. My problem is you every night. No support, no affection, just whining because I'm trying to make a living for us. She walked to the bedroom, grabbed her things, and headed out the back door to the cottage without a word. I definitely needed the space, and I was relieved when she left. I sat down at the table and drank the brandy. By the second glass, I had calmed down and was busy analyzing my life. I loved my job, and although it was hard, it was a career. I loved my relationship with the Robinsons. Ted was a mentor and friend. Kim and I always remained friends despite a failed marriage, and Mike was my best friend. I loved my home. I tirelessly molded it into my idea of the perfect home. Perhaps because my family was never sure of a place to live when I was growing up, having my own home was especially important. I began to feel better and decided that tomorrow Celia and I would talk and maybe even consider seeing a counselor. I gave her some time. At 9 in the morning, I went out to the cottage with a tray with coffee, juice, and fruit on it. I opened the door, but no one was there. Her things weren't here, and she clearly hadn't spent the night. Okay, what to do now? I wandered around that backyard for about an hour and called her. Straight to voicemail. In the middle of the afternoon, I called again, voicemail again. I did chores, tried a few more times, and then called Kimberly. She invited me over for lunch, and she, Millie, and Kim and I discussed my situation. Kim said we had both made mistakes, but Millie was firmly on my side. We discussed all the options, including divorce. I was in town that week, and after another half-dozen calls and no response until Tuesday, the ball was in her hands. Friday mid-afternoon, she called. She was visiting friends and wanted to stop by to pick up some of her stuff. She showed up at 6 o'clock in the evening. I wanted to talk, but she said it wasn't time yet. I asked where she was staying. She said at a friend's house. I asked who, and she said, just a friend's house. I told her that I was leaving next week for a weekend for another show and that I would like to talk to her when I got back. She nodded, saying, okay. She drove off in some car I didn't recognize with dark-tinted windows. I couldn't tell who was driving. I decided to fly out to Denver on Sunday night so I could get straight to work on Monday morning. I offered my clients the quality, service, and relationships we had established. Compared to lower prices, this was the only advantage my Asian competitor had. We actually retained a good percentage of our business, especially when material defects started showing up in the Asian product. Tuesday night, I had dinner with Junior Longfellow. He and I were close enough that I told him the whole story of my situation. You know, he said, we don't actually need you at the show this weekend. We're working with Longfellow to organize a booth at the expo. The show will be slow going. And for that matter, I already have too many people scheduled. I think you'd better get back and take care of business at home. My first reaction was to protest, but I decided to agree. Friday morning, I got on an early flight that got me home before 9 in the morning. The rest of the week in Colorado went well. I was optimistic, even though I knew Celia and I had some work to do. I drove straight home from the airport, and when I opened the door, I immediately realized something was wrong. The house had been trashed. Had I really been robbed? When I looked closer, it looked like there had been a party. Empty liquor bottles, trash, and unwashed dishes were everywhere. There was a burn mark on the refinished wooden floor and a huge dark stain on the couch. I looked around. No one was in the house, but it looked like the bed in the guest room had been used. Celia. Had she really done that? I thought she loved the house as much as I did. I walked outside. The backyard looked normal, but I saw a few cigarette butts on the ground. I walked over to the cottage, and when I opened the door, I saw Celia and Marcus sleeping on the bed. What the hell is going on? She jumped up. You weren't supposed to be home until tomorrow, she said. Meanwhile, Marcus had carelessly rolled over and was staring at me with a smirk on his face. Get out of here, asshole! I barked at him. Chill out, dude. I'll leave, of course, but you do realize this lady owns half of this house? You have 2 minutes to get out of here, I yelled. We're married and this is my house too, she replied. I was furious and knew that if I didn't get away from these two, something very bad was going to happen. 2 minutes, I said and walked away. Back at the main house, I called Mike and explained what had happened. He was calm and said he would make some calls to divorce attorneys and get everything straightened out. Divorce seemed to be the only option at this point. I called Kim at work and briefly told her my version of events, whereupon she said she and Millie would come over tonight. I ordered new door locks from the hardware store. I was so excited and determined to get my house in order. Mike called back and made an appointment on Monday at 11 a.m. with the divorce lawyer he had been referred to. His name was Darren King. I checked his profile. Ex-military, originally from Texas. I found a picture of him. Dark hair, strong jaw, and a very unserious look. Okay, cell phone rings. I checked the cottage, but they were gone. It was a mess there, too. I got the locks and installed them. By then, it was nearing dinner time, and Kim and Millie showed up. They told the whole story, and even Kim agreed. There was no way to save this relationship. At this point, I was more angry than saddened. I met up with Darren King, and he was just as he appeared. A firm handshake, a look straight into his eyes. He explained that although she had committed adultery, it would not be factored into the divorce decree. He asked about my assets, and I told him about the house, bank, and retirement accounts, and a 9% stake in specialty timbers. He said that everything would likely be split 50-50, and we should prepare for that outcome. He said he would have all the documents ready and I could hand them over by the end of the week. When I left, I was in shock. My marriage was over. She would get half the value of the house and half of my equity in specialty timbers. My whole life was in jeopardy. I started to get depressed. I called Mike to explain what was going on. After explaining what Darren King had told me about 50-50, Mike said, "Don't worry about it yet. Just take care of yourself and I might be able to help." After talking to Mike, I felt a little better. But what could Mike do? The law is the law. I went to work mostly because I didn't want to be alone and tried to immerse myself in the routine of helping run the business. It seems that both Ted and Kim had talked to Mike, and they were both enthusiastic about what the outcome might be. I, on the other hand, was not so optimistic. Even John, Nathan, and the guys from the warehouse were optimistic. John came up to me and said, "Boss, we've got your back, don't worry." I truly appreciated their friendship. On Friday, I handed her the divorce papers at work. Immediately, I got a text from her saying, "Bastard, you should have sent them to me at work. I want half of everything." I called Mike, who asked me to call Darren, who told me to cut off all communication with her. If she hired a lawyer, I was to contact Darren, and then it would be decided between the lawyers. I couldn't help but worry about my house and my shares in specialty. I was upset and called Mike. He said, "I know you're worried, but I'm working on a few things for you. Have I ever let you down before?" "No," but I asked him, "What exactly are you working on?" "I can't tell you yet, trust me." As the weeks went by, my life began to consist solely of work. I didn't even want to work on the house. She could have it. I worked with a dark cloud. Not only were my assets being encroached upon, but my wife was missing. I kept wondering what had happened. I knew I was away from home a lot, but I felt like she realized it was for our future. I realized that in life, you have to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gain. I knew she was a bit of a flirt and liked to get attention from men. That whole scene at the dance club showed that. I was sad, nervous, and angry all rolled into one. If there was any good news, it was that business had recovered and we began making plans to enter the Southern California and possibly Texas markets. We had inquiries for our products from those regions. One evening as I was driving home, I saw a car with dark-tinted windows in which Celia was sitting, pull up to the curb in front of my house and then pull away when I stopped. They definitely knew where I lived. The following Tuesday, I received a call from Darren King informing me that he had correspondence with Celia's attorney. They were demanding half my share of specialty timbers, 50% of my bank account and investments, and the house. I exploded. No way in hell. He told me to calm down. They could demand whatever they wanted. He was working with Mike on something that had to do with my finances, and we might have a surprise for them. Another 2 weeks went by, and one evening, John, Nathan, Van, and I went out for a beer in Old Town. As we were sitting at the Z Bar, a couple of Marcus's guys walked past us and glared at me. Then they hurriedly walked away. I looked back and John just stared after them. "Is that the asshole's boss?" John asked, and I said, "Yeah." The three of them started talking in Vietnamese. "What?" I asked. "Don't worry, boss, we got your back." The next day, Darren called me and told me that there would be a preliminary and potential settlement conference at his office the following Wednesday. "What do I need to do? How can I help?" I asked. "Just be here at 3 o'clock p.m., he told me. I called Mike and told him what was going on. "Yeah, I know, we'll be there too." "We?" I asked. "Who are we?" "Like I told you, have faith, maybe it'll work out." And then he hung up. I was puzzled, but slightly encouraged. I got there early Wednesday morning and Darren's secretary took me to a far office. A few minutes later, I was ushered into a conference room. On our side of the table sat Darren, Mike, a man I didn't know, and me. On the other side sat Celia's lawyer, Rick Blazingame, Celia, still looking good, and I couldn't believe it, Marcus, sitting back and smirking. There were no handshakes or small talk. Darren began, "So, Mr. Blazingame, this is your meeting. Begin." "If I may," he began, "Mrs. Joseph just wants to get what is rightfully owed to her after your client kicked her out of the matrimonial home." "Go on," Darren said, looking directly at him. "Here is a fair and accurate account of the marital estate," and held out a paper to all of us. It read as follows. A. 9% of Specialty Timbers, LLC, one half of which was valued at $360,000. B. 50% of a residence on Ravenscrest Drive, one and a half of which was valued at $325,000. C. 50% of Mr. Joseph's retirement account valued at $63,000. D. 50% of their joint checking and savings account valued at $19,000. C. Various prices of furniture and other household items. At this point, the man I didn't know opened his briefcase and pulled out some documents. "Mr. Blazingame, let me introduce myself to you and your client. My name is Aaron DeVosier. I am an attorney and have a doctorate in corporate law. I have some documents that may be of interest to you." He held out some legal papers to Celia and Blazingame. "Mr. Joseph doesn't own the house on Ravenscrest. It's owned by Specialty Timbers, LLC. "But," Blazingame muttered, "he owns the company and—" "No, he doesn't," Aaron interrupted him. "According to the company's bylaws, the majority can appoint an owner, and in unusual cases where it might hurt the company, the majority can cancel the shares. If you open to page 3 of the minutes of the annual meeting, you'll see that the majority of the owners canceled Mr. Joseph's shares even before the divorce decree was obtained." At this point, Marcus exclaimed, "That's utter nonsense. You own half the shares." Celia exclaimed, and Blazingame hissed. "Whoever you are," Darren King ordered with a nonchalant look, "one more word and you will be removed. What's more, I'll do it myself." At that moment, Marcus ran out of the room, slamming the door. Celia continued to cry, but the room was silent. "Mr. Blazingame, Mr. DeVosier has reviewed all the records and had them certified by the Oregon Attorney General's office. You can try to take the case to the highest court, but I advise you, it will cost your client dearly. And I'll add that Mr. DeVosier has advised attorneys on far more complex corporate law matters than this one. He is also, as a favor to his fraternity brother Michael Robinson, advising Mr. Joseph pro bono." I was as shocked as Celia and Blazingame. Darren opened the file folder and pulled out a check. "Here is a cashier's check for $25,000. This is our final offer, Mr. Blazingame. Would you like to take a few minutes to consult with your client?" "Yes, it would be my pleasure," Blazingame said. We walked out and headed for Darren's office. I hugged Mike, hugged Darren, and when I walked over to hug Aaron DeVosier, he held out his hand and said, "A handshake is enough." I laughed and shook his hand. "Thank you all, but don't I own my house?" Mike smiled and said, "Don't worry, the house is yours. When my old man negotiated with Terry Peterson to buy the house, Peterson wouldn't sell it to you because he was afraid you couldn't handle the payments. So the old man made the payments and you paid him." I thought about it. And Aaron peeked at the deal, and today that house is owned by Specialty Timbers. Once it's settled, we'll put it in your name. What about my shares in the company? I asked. Do I still own 9%? No, not really, but when everything is settled, you'll own 14%, and I've bequeathed 5% to you. Truth be told, Cam, you deserve it. The company is doing well, and you play a big part in that. At that moment, Darren's secretary walked in and announced that Blazing Game was ready to talk to us. We walked back into the conference room and took our seats. Darren began, So, Mr. IA's Blazing Game, what have you and your client decided? Well, Mr. King, it's not that simple. Although he doesn't own the house, Mrs. Joseph spent many hours fixing it up and working on it. Moreover, while Mr. Joseph was on his many travels, it was Mrs. Joseph who took care of the house. And? Darren asked. Blazing Game continued. We believe that $50,000 is far more in line with what Mrs. Joseph at least deserves. At this, Darren closed the file folder, put it back in his briefcase, stood up and said, I'll see you in court. And Mike and Aaron DeVosier stood up as well. Wait. We'll take the $25,000, Blazing Game muttered. Darren pulled out the divorce certificate and Celia and I signed the agreement. I was free to go without incurring much expense. As Celia and Blazing Game were leaving, Mike said loud enough for everyone to hear, $25,000 is a great job, but we'd like to bring it up to $75,000. I only heard one sob from Celia, and that was the end of it. That was a little harsh, Robbie, Aaron said. Mike replied, Not rough enough, my friend. We celebrated at the bar, and I enjoyed a treat. I was so grateful for the legal advice, and especially for having a friend, Mike Robinson. Friday was a long day of work, but a good day. Everything was going well. I felt supported by Ted, Kim, Mike, John, and the warehouse guys, and it felt good to be part of a good group of people. I was still mad at Celia, but it was our relationship that made me most sad. If only a couple things had worked out differently, I think we could have been happy, but I also thought, should a strong relationship be so fragile? It's hard to say. Before I realized it, there was a dark car with tinted windows following me as I left work. I didn't pay attention to it. I was just glad to be back at my house. I immediately went to the back patio to have a beer after work. I sat there with my eyes closed and just exhaled. That's when I first heard them. There were 3 of them, and Marcus had a knife. Well, look what we have here. What do you want, Marcus? I asked. I was scared. I need a part of you, a few fingers, maybe a hand, maybe something else. I looked around for an escape route, and immediately the other 2 guys grabbed me. This is going to be fun, he grinned. At that moment, I heard a commotion outside the cottage, and within seconds, John, Nathan, Van, and 3 of their friends appeared in my yard. Do you need any help, boss? Actually, John, yes. Can you help show these guys the way out? Marcus started backing away, and his guys ran off. John's guys grabbed them, and John grabbed Marcus. We're going to have a talk, mister, he told Marcus as he escorted them out of the yard. About an hour later, John returned alone. I thanked him and asked him how he knew they were here. I looked out of the warehouse door and saw a black car following you. I've seen those guys before, bad guys. Thank you. How can I thank you? I asked. I was grateful. Pay you back? How can I repay you? It's not like you repaid me. We're friends. I was moved to tears. And boss, I guarantee those guys won't be back. I didn't want to know that. Epilogue. Let's fast forward 5 years. There are ups and downs in business, but for us, it's mostly ups. I had a new person working for me, and although he didn't understand anything about the logging business, he was smart, hardworking, and a good student. He worked in the operations department with John and the guys. His name is Chase DeVosier. Yes, that's Mike's fraternity brother, Aaron's cousin who helped me so much over the years. Chase showed no interest in college and needed a job. At first I thought I was repaying a favor, but he's doing a great job for us. Ted still comes in every day, but I think he mostly reads the paper and socializes with old friends. Kimberly really runs the place and I help out. I spend a lot of time traveling, but now that we're settled in, it doesn't happen as often. My personal life has gotten better too. Thanks to my friendship with John and Nathan, I met Van Jelly's sister. Yes, that's her name. I asked her why she was named that, and she said, when my mom gave birth to me and I came into the world, she said it was Jelly. So cute. And she is cute. She works as a fitness instructor at the Valley Club and is in a very good shape. I'm almost 10 years older than her, but she doesn't seem to mind. It also doesn't bother her that I'm not getting remarried. She tells me, "You look at another woman and kick her ass, and then I kick yours." I just smile and laugh. I never ran into Celia again or saw her in a bad way or anything like that, no. I never saw her again. And to be honest, I don't even think of her very often. The one time I did see Marcus walking towards me down the street, he noticed me and crossed to the other side. I am forever grateful for the people who have been in my life. Ted, Kim, Millie, John Pham, Nathan, Van, of course Jelly, but most of all, Mike. I love my home and I love my company. I'm a very happy person. The end. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for the next videos.